Whitaker-Myers Wealth Managers YouTube page. We're so excited to have you here today where we dive into personal finance, different investment strategies that we incorporate for our clients, different wealth management tips and tricks to help you build a brighter financial future. I'm John Mark Young, who's going to be your host today, and I've got a great co-host who normally joins me on these interviews. He's our Chief Financial Planning Officer, a certified financial planner, Tim Hilterman. Tim, it's great to have you back in the mic, in the saddle, whatever we want to call this podcast thing, this YouTube thing.
No, you're right, John Mark. We're really excited about today's episode because we have an incredible guest joining us, someone who's not only a seasoned financial advisor, but also a former financial coach, a military veteran, and insurance industry professional. Very interesting history here. Excited to jump in here. Please welcome Joe Maines, one of our financial advisors here, Whitaker-Myers Wealth Managers.
Yeah, and Joe brings a very unique perspective to the table. He blends that diverse professional background that you talked about, and he definitely has a passion for helping families achieve financial peace, all centered around a lot of the Dave Ramsey isms that our firm has been centered around. That's really kind of how he got his start. And so whether it's his military discipline that he learned, or his years in the insurance world, which give him a wonderful perspective on that side of the balance sheet and running that, and or his time running his own financial coaching company, which was titled A Fresh New Focus. Joe's journey is nothing short of inspiring, that you're going to enjoy.
And today we're diving into Joe's path to becoming a financial advisor, the lessons he's learned along the way, and how his experiences have shaped his approach to working with his clients, especially those in the Dave Ramsey community.
Yeah, so sit back, grab your coffee, do whatever you do when you watch these YouTube videos. Keep your workout going if you're moving around, and we're going to talk to Joe and hopefully inspire you, teach you, and encourage you today. So Joe, thanks so much for joining Tim and I.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's our pleasure. And Joe, you and I have known each other a long time. One of the things when I think about Joe Maines, I think about evening meetings at your church doing Financial Peace University, which is something that you still do, not necessarily done as much around the United States anymore because a lot of FPU has gone the way of a lot of work, which has been remote video. As a matter of fact, we've done a couple of video Financial Peace Universities where we've had, 30, 40 attendees, and they're in Chicago, they're in California, they're in New York, they're in Ohio, they're all over the country there. But you guys still do a local Financial Peace University class, and you've now got the experience and credentials and knowledge to do the financial planning part. So John Mark's evenings are a little bit more freed up because of that. But Joe, do you still love doing those Financial Peace University classes?
Absolutely. Yeah, we been doing that. I've been doing that 15 years now at our local church. It's Heartland Community Church. And yeah, it's just very fulfilling, to meet with clients. We actually just finished one. So yeah, I love doing that. And I really appreciated you coming and attending with us as we were talking about, baby step 4. It was really really helpful, and I appreciated the fact that we met so long ago. I think that was about 10 years ago.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, those are again some of my favorite memories are going to FPU classes and just teaching people about the right way to invest and the right way to think about their financial life there. And that Joe, is the Financial Peace University, is that really what kind of took you down the financial coaching path?
It is. So, when I first joined the Heartland Community Church here locally, they were offering an FPU class, and I attended that. And so I attended it, and it was very impactful. It really gave me a structure, that really spoke to me, about how to go about managing money. I had found Dave Ramsey years before. I was. My wife and I were in Indianapolis. We were in a bookstore, and we found Dave Ramsey on the clearance shelf. Actually, it was on cassette tape, and he had was making the transitions over into I guess DVDs or CDs or whatever at the time. And so I bought these on cassette tape and started listening, and it really spoke to me. And so when I started at our church and they were offering a Financial Peace University, I said I have to attend that. So I attended it. And then, not too much later, I actually was helping to deliver, a session. And then I ended up taking over the sessions and, started leading those myself. And been doing that for 15 years now.
Yeah, that's awesome. You said, I had to attend it, and that stuck out to me because when the guy next to me did Financial Peace University at our church, it was the only option for Sunday school. So, like, it was one of those things where I was like, I don't know if I want to go to that, but I have to. And I'm so glad it did because, like you, that was a life-changing class that Tim led at our church there. But we definitely came at two different ways. You from a more humble perspective, me from a more probably narcissistic perspective. But it created the same outcome, which was we got hit in between the eyes in terms of learning about, you have all these advanced investment knowledge and how to do this, but really a lot of it just comes down to the basics. Bunting, tackling, as it relates to your financial lives. And that's what really hit me between the eyes going through that class was like, wow, we're doing a great job with the advanced stuff, and I'm doing a terrible job driving around a car with the new car payment to impress somebody at a stoplight I'll never meet. There, I'm have a good income, but I'm just keeping around the student loan that I should be getting out of my life. There, and it changed my perspective on the basics, which ultimately changed my perspective on the entire financial life. It's what enabled me to quit my job and start this firm.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we talk about, baby step 1, 2, and 3, but it's really 4, 5, and 6 is just as important as far as like the basics, the making sure that you have a budget, and it's, the budget word has kind of a negative connotation, but it's really, it's a financial plan. And a financial plan starts with money management and those kinds of decisions. And so whether you are getting ready for retirement, I think you need a financial plan. You need a budget. You need to know where that's going. So as we, start to calculate, how much do you need for retirement? Well, a lot of that depends on how much you're spending and what your, budget's going to be currently and what your budget's going to be in retirement. So I think that, a lot of folks that, maybe are steps 4, 5, and 6, think, well, the budget isn't as important, but I think it's important for all the steps. So I think those who start with 1, 2, and 3 and start with the, the budget and kind of working with a plan to be able to get out of debt, by the time you get into 4, 5, 6, you've already established that muscle. But I think I work with quite a few clients that, are, they don't have debt, but they're still not managing money well. And so I start to work with them and help them to lay out a budget and make that effective. So yeah, absolutely. I love the FPU and I love the structure and how it, how that helped me to really change my life. And we tend to talk about FPU and dollars and cents, but it's so much more than that. It's really about strengthening marriages. It's about creating joy. It's about, teaching your kids. It's about, owning a home. So there's so much more to it than just, the dollars and cents. And so one of the things I do when I'm coaching is, certainly lay out people's goals, what are their top 3 goals, but then the key thing I think is the why. Why is this important to you? Why do you want to change the way you're managing money? What do you want to accomplish? And it's an emotional why. And so I just wanted to spend a couple of minutes, if I could, talking to you about why I want to be, wanted to be a financial coach and wanted to be a financial advisor. Just kind of give you some of my background and my why. I share this with all of my coaching clients, but I thought I would do that here as well.
Yeah. So definitely take us through, because you went into, like, FPU led you into this financial coaching business, fresh new focus, which you had a tremendous impact on many people. And then you transitioned to still doing that, but now kind of a full-fledged financial advisor working with our team here at Whitaker-Myers, our planners, our tax folks to be more comprehensive. What inspired that transition, or just walk us through kind of how that evolved over time for you?
Yeah, so if I could just back up even beyond Fresh New Focus, I want to go back to when I was, actually a teenager. So what ended up happening was when I came home from school one day, and half my house was empty. So my dad had actually left us, and so I was about 17 years old at that time. I was dating my current wife, at that time as well. And so, certainly was, working with plans to get married, with her. And one of the things I wanted to do is figure out, well, how do I change, the way I, my trajectory of my life. I don't want to follow in the footsteps of my dad. And what ended up happening is my dad ended up, there was a lot of stress with finances, and that ended up, creating a lot of angst and a lot of, stressors at home, and he ultimately bailed, right? So he walked out and took half the house, with him. And I've only seen him a couple of times since then. So I was like, okay, how do I change this? What do I do in order to be able to change the trajectory of my life? I want to make sure that I'm there, for my wife and for my future kids. And so, that's really, kind of what I was really kind of propelled me to start looking at finances and trying to get it, get that fixed and learn the skills that I didn't learn when I was, younger. And that's where when I came across the cassette tapes, when I was in Indianapolis and started listening to Dave Ramsey, it really completely changed everything for me. And so I ended up starting to study and listen to these tapes and reading the books. And unfortunately, I did Dave-ish for quite a while, before I actually figured out that if I actually follow the steps, it actually works. And so, that ended up, leading me into Financial Peace University. I ended up ultimately co-leading it, and then I was leading it. I met you because I asked, about SmartVestor Pro, and I was very impressed with you. And I said, you know what? We sat down one time, and I said, one of these days, I want to be a Ramsey financial advisor. And I ended up going through the Ramsey, master financial coach program, and ultimately working my way into being a Ramsey financial advisor. And we've walked all the baby steps at this point. So we actually just finished baby step 6 2 years ago. So we paid off our house, and what I want to do is help clients to be able to experience the same kind of financial peace, that Dave talks about. And it's the joy, the peace, the passion, contentment, giving, stronger marriage, stronger kids, owning a home, retirement planning, all of those, those are all byproducts, of being able to effectively, manage your money well. And I realized that as I was, on this journey, what I was trying to do is what Jesus does, right? I wanted to be able to serve others the way Jesus, served others. And so it's been amazing for me personally, as far as like the spiritual journey as well as the money journey, and being able to build a family. And after my wife and I have been married for 38 years now, and we have 3 adult kids and 3 wonderful grandchildren, and it's all worked out. And I give so much credit to what Dave was able to do, so many years ago.
Yeah.
That's amazing, Joe. Thanks for sharing that. And what struck me of your background is a lot of financial advisors get into the industry maybe because they're looking to get ahead financially, or maybe just have some selfish desires. I feel like your motivation is coming from a completely different perspective, and also your background. So for you, you were a financial coach, now you're a financial advisor. So how does your financial coaching background influence your approach now to financial advising?
Yeah, so as a financial coach, one of the things that we really do, one of our objectives is to inject hope. And we always are looking forward. We glance at the rear view mirror, kind of glance at the past, but focus on the future. And so, clients come from all, different situations, financially, all different, some of them, just have different backgrounds. And so what I like to do is meet the client wherever they are and inject hope and then help them to be able to put together a plan. And so I do have a tendency to focus on, on the money management side of things, while I'm talking about, the investing aspects, because I think those are all the foundations. We don't want to hang the shingles, before we have the foundation. And so I help them to, look at things from a foundational perspective, as far as like the budget, the cash flow, the spending, making sure that they are, putting together a good, foundation for success, as we then start talking about the financial planning, investing, retirement, goals, objectives, that kind of an approach. So the injecting hope that came through financial coaching is central, I think, to success.
Yeah, yeah, and I think, Joe, like when you think about why people come to you, it's because they lack that hope. There's something that's driving them. Like can people that are feel like they're okay probably don't darken our door a lot, but there's some sort of hurdle, there's some sort of issue, there's some sort of question, some sort of problem, challenge, whatever you might call it, that is driving people to either the coaching side or to the planning side. And the when you think about the coaching side, that's indiscriminate of income. A lot of times you could have somebody that's making hundreds of thousands of dollars that's still struggling with some of those basic bunting and tackling type things. But what would you, if you had to quantify or classify like the common financial challenge you see amongst the folks that become engaged with Dave Ramsey and Ramsey Solutions, what would that common financial issue or challenge be? And then how's a coach, or even as a financial advisor now, how did you work with them on that?
Yeah, I think the common, themes are really planning. So I think a lot of people will approach their money management as a tracking, right? They keep track of what they've spent instead of actually outlining what their plan is. So what I encourage people to do, and what I want to do as a coach, is help them to be independent and be able to, manage this process themselves. And a lot of it is just kind of like the thought process of getting them to plan out the month before the month begins. And so that's really a different concept. And I think a lot of people are like, well, how do I do that? Right. And so we've put together a sheet that I've modeled after Financial Peace University that we've been using for a couple of decades, for my own family. And so there's a couple of nuanced pieces that we've added in that make all the difference as far as being able to outline, the plan for the spending. And so it's planning. It's making sure that you're outlining the month before the month begins. And it's also spending. So impulsive spending is the piece that really gets everybody in trouble, So, you think about what's been happening in our culture, right? With like Amazon, it's like click, 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 and they deliver it and off you go. So you really have to, a lot of people are like on automatic payments, for instance, and they have these subscriptions and it's auto pay. So what I like to do is build friction in between you and the spending. So it's the friction piece. It's not having automatic payments. It's actually making those payments yourself so that you know where your money is going. So it's like Dave talks about, on paper, on purpose. Well, it's not on paper anymore. It's digital or whatever, electronic, but it's still on purpose. So on paper, on purpose, making sure that you're actually planning out the spending and creating some friction so that, for instance, my wife and I, we we don't make any major purchases without talking about it and without sleeping on it. So any of the clients that I have that are, if we talk about things and we're like, you know what, let me think about this, let me sleep on it. It's like, exactly, that's exactly what you want to do. So yeah, I think those are some of the common themes, I think, are planning, spending, partnership, and debt. So, the partnership piece is working together, and it's not just with the mom and dad, it's with the kids as well. It's like a family dynamic, having the kids be involved in the decision, not on the decision making, but in the money management piece, is very important. And then, debt, just not relying on debt to make purchases. It's much better to actually save up the money and be able to buy, whatever it is, with cash. You'll get better deals, and you won't get yourself in trouble, with all of the debt payments and interest payments and those kinds of issues.
Like that. I like the idea of friction that you mentioned. Of course, everyone has a lot of electronic payments, but we try to have as much in cash as possible. So there's actual literal friction of prying out that $100 bill from your fingers to put it over in this category. And there's something to be said for that. You don't want to see Uncle Benjamin leaving your wallet, and it is painful. I mean, Dave has a lot of evidence there and a lot of studies as far as that goes.
Absolutely.
And speaking of Dave, a lot of his FPU examples go back to what you're talking about, the hope that is described in his stories and things like that. And I'd like you to share an example of maybe a success story that you've been able to work with someone on that kind of demonstrates the process and the financial principles that you put in action.
Absolutely. Thanks, Tim. There's been hundreds. So there's been hundreds of clients. And so as I was thinking about, what is a one that really stands out? And there is one that really stands out. It was a young couple. They were engaged. They weren't married yet. And they were not able to pay their bills. And so what ended up happening was, they just didn't have enough cash flow to be able to cover so we go to the four walls, we start talking there, we address four walls, and then we get into the debt. We start outlining the debt, smallest to largest. And they didn't have enough money to be able to pay the debts. And so we ended up doing a pro rata approach. And Dave does a really good job of reviewing and outlining the pro rata approach in in his video where he talks about credit sharks and suits. Mm-hmm. And so we ended up, I created a template, based upon that pro rata approach. And so what we did was we started to, apply that. And so in the pro rata approach, you can't pay, make full payments, right? So you kind of list out all the debts, and then you start going through, and you ended up paying a percentage, to each creditor. And then you have to walk through with each creditor how exactly, why you're doing what you're doing, and just like Dave outlines in that video. And so anyway, if you kind of fast forward to today, what ended up happening is, he didn't like the job that he had at the time. He was struggling with regard to paying off these debts. He had all these creditor issues that we were working on. So we ended up tackling, one step at a time. We started tackling, the debts. He started a side business, and so I helped him to get the side business going. And helped him with some confidence about how to go about, doing this. Well, today he is running his own business. So he's very successful. He's hired like 5 people, within this business. They're married. They bought a house. They have, some young children now. And so everything is just amazing. They have no debts, right? They've paid everything off. They've followed all of the steps. Now we worked together for a long period of time, like a number of years, right, to be able to accomplish this. But, for someone to go from, having to do the pro rata approach to actually now, having this business and this, something that he's always dreamed of, and being married, having a house, having some kids, and being able to be successful. That one really stands out.
So he went from part-time side hustle to that became his full-time
It
job,
did. Yes. Yes.
and it was something
That's
he
awesome.
liked a lot more than his kind of current work. It was more of his passion.
Well, he was doing his side work was similar to what he was
Oh,
doing
okay.
in his full-time job, but he ended up doing his own thing, and he ended up very successful. So he's got a number of videos that he does and he promotes, and he travels around the country doing his business, and it's terrific. The guy is a huge success story.
And he did they end up paying off all their debt eventually?
They paid off all their debt. They ended up, following the steps, right? So they ended up, the way you buy a home, and with regard to the, 20, the no more than 25% of your take-home pay for a 15-year fixed mortgage. So he followed all those different steps, and it's worked out quite well.
That's incredible. That's an incredible story. Can you, Joe, describe to people, because if people don't listen, even if they maybe do listen to Dave Ramsey, they might not know what you're talking about when you say the four walls.
Yeah, so the four walls are going to be the things that you need, the essentials, right? So it's going to be like your home. You need a place to stay. You have to have transportation. You have, being able to eat, utilities, electricity. So those are your essentials, the four walls. And a lot of people, what they'll do is they'll get lost in trying to make payments on their debt, right? Before they,
Wait, Chase
buy
isn't part of the four
groceries.
walls?
What?
My Chase
No,
account isn't part of the four walls?
no,
Oh, okay.
no. Yes. Uh, Absolutely. So it's the primary priorities, right? It's being able to outline those priorities. Dave talked when we were going through the coaches training. He actually shared a really good story about what it was like when he started coaching, and he actually started it at his church. And somebody was part of one of those early coaching sessions, and this woman was not eating, but she was paying her credit card bill, and so a lot of that came right out of that that type of an approach to say, no, you have to do the four walls. You got to take care of your essentials before you start paying your credit cards. So it's just really kind of laying out those priorities, and then laying out a plan. And people feel so much better actually after we just we just kind of get it all together and actually can put it on paper on purpose and see what it's all about. It's, if it kind of takes away some of the fear and some of the anxiety, when you kind of lay out a plan. And so that's what we do as financial coaches.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. That's a great story. Dave Ramsey influences so much of what we do in our practice. He's influenced you personally, myself personally, Tim personally. Um, how do you feel like you integrate the principles you learned in FPU and just listening to the radio show or the YouTube now, and how does that then like translate into you as a financial advisor and the advice you give?
As a financial coach, it's really about listening. It's asking good questions and then listening to the responses, and then incorporating those responses into the plan, right? So it's, the client, we need to find out from the client what's important to them. What do they want to accomplish? And so it's injecting hope. A lot of people that come and they feel like they're behind the curve, right? They should be much further down the path than they are. And so it's helpful when I can, kind of outline, what are your goals? What do you want to accomplish? What are you worried about? And then inject hope, and then, get out the calculator and start saying, well, if we take these steps, this is kind of where you can be. And then people feel way better, much better about what they're, where they are and where they could go. And so really, I think financial advisor and financial coach is not that much different. I think it's a lot of the skills, a lot of the passion and the love that I have for clients, as a financial coach really carries right over into a financial advisor. It's just that I'm looking, you know, looking through it through the lens of, investing and trying to help them to establish, a good, solid plan, and then helping them if they take these steps, where they could be. And so they end up, feeling great, right, afterwards.
Well, I think that's the heart of it is without a plan. I think a lot of us, anyone can feel stuck, can feel fearful, especially if you're deeply in debt and don't know what to do and don't know how to get out of it. It can lead to great anxiety and hopelessness. So I love that you're focusing on hope. And even if you're not in debt, you're just living a normal American lifestyle. I have my car payment, got my very costly cell phone that I'm signing up for. I'm drinking my Starbucks. I got my Amazon going on, and you're just in autopilot. But at the same time, you don't have the direction and the hope that you need. So I guess take us through what strategies would you recommend for individuals when they're just starting off on their financial journey?
So if they're starting off on their financial journey, can you clarify, Tim, as far as what?
So, where's the starting point when somebody comes to you, no matter what scenario they're in, whether they're deeply in debt or they're looking for guidance, where do you begin the conversation? Where do you kind of get them on the path?
Sure. So I like to sit down with them and outline their goals. And I really like to find out what it was like when they were growing up, right? What was it like as
Hmm.
far as managing money in their home? How many siblings, did you have? What did your parents do for work? What did you learn from them, about, finances? I think a lot of times as we're working through this, I think it's the first time that husband and wife actually get to hear what it was like, as far as managing money, from their spouse, what it was like when they were growing up and, interacting with their parents about that. Because what ends up happening is you can identify, a lot of like points of conflict. It's like, if you're used to having really big birthday parties when you're young, right, and the other one was used to having like subdued birthday parties, when they were young. It's kind of like there's points of potential conflict there, kind of working through that. So trying to get on the same page to be able to strengthen the marriage. So I like to outline the goals, really talk about the why. Why is it important for you to be able to change, the way, things are functioning right now? What led you to kind of come up and meet, with us, for financial coaching, and then really outline the backgrounds, right? What's the background of, your view and how you, are your perspective on money management. And then what we can do is actually from there begin to, put together a plan and outline things. But what ends up happening is that why statement is so important because there's going to be changes, in the way, there's going to be things that you're going to be giving up, right? Or changing of behaviors and changing of, there's going to be sacrifices, and what you're accustomed to. And so what we can do is circle back and point to that why statement again and again with regard to why this is important to you to be able to change, change what you want to accomplish and why it's important. And that I think people are willing then to kind of make those sacrifices because you're right. I need to change XYZ so I can accomplish XYZ.
And two
Yeah.
things that you said really stood out to me is one is expectations, and you diving into that. What's your background with money? What are your expectations? They really, especially you're talking about a lot, strengthening your marriage, helping a husband and wife understand their expectations, and not only understand them, but like you said, have buy-in to what are we going to do to change, and then that way, each partner and even like you said, the kids can get involved, because we have this very powerful reason and this thing that brings us together to accomplish these goals. It's really powerful.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So people have a why statement, and the why statement drives a lot of that. I imagine part of the why is some level of financial security, and that relieves stress, that allows them to maybe pursue the things that they want to pursue. Yet maybe the reason they're coming through the front door is there's cash flow issues, there's debt. I'm just still surprised that you don't think Chase is part of the four walls, but we can get past that, I guess, for now. So how do you help clients that are like worried about, I've got to build this wealth long term, because that's part of the why, or the end result of the why. Yet I've got this debt that's in front of me right now that I need to deal with. How do you balance those two things?
Yeah, and I think Dave addresses that really well, to be able to say one step at a time, right? Because what ends up happening, people want to come in and they want to get rid of debt, they want to invest, they want to save for kids' college, they want to do all of this at the same time. And I think there's a lot of benefit to focusing on, when you're trying to get out of debt, then get the debt knocked out. Before you move on to, the 15% into retirement. So it really is, I think, a real benefit to be able to kind of focus, come up with a plan and then focus on that plan, and make that happen. So
Yeah.
we really try to follow those steps that way.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like Tim said,
Yeah.
if there's no plan, there's no hope sometimes. And the reality is yeah, that's part of the reason we love Dave's principles, is it gives you a plan. It gives you an order of operations, as some other financial advisors call it, a way to facilitate, the thing you need to do. And yeah, it's, more and more and more we keep learning, so much so that now the CFP board that tests us as a certified financial planner, what Tim has gone through and accomplished, more and more of that is now less, do you know the Roth contribution limit? Do you know how to do this thing or that thing? And it's more behavioral finance. It's, can you help people overcome these mental behavioral hurdles that are the reason we get stuck in the first place and don't know what to do. It's less about, again, a lot of knowledge. Now, knowledge is good, and knowledge creates opportunities, but and creates a good advice, but it's also just understanding that behavioral side, which is what Dave figured out 30 some years ago.
Yeah, and
Absolutely. Yeah.
I know a lot of people, I can relate to this. When we're talking about your finances, you want to be involved in contributing to your 401k, but you're still trying to pay off other debt, and you're just trying to do it all. And I think your process and Dave's process is so brilliant in that it's creating laser focus on one thing. Even if you, like he says, recommend pausing your retirement savings to go after your debt very aggressively. And I love the emotion that he brings out of that, with gazelle focus and staying away from being eaten and getting out of debt like your life depends on it. But the fact is, if you do that, if you are focused and faithful to that, in short order, when you wipe out all that debt, you can move very quickly into the rest of the baby steps. And that's a beautiful thing. Let me ask you a question. So talking about focus, what role does budgeting play in your financial planning process, and what tools do you recommend when it comes to budgeting?
Yeah, so we talk about budgeting, and a lot of times budgeting just has a bad connotation, because it's like restrictive, and really it's planning. It's a financial plan for your money management, for your cash flow. And so The tool, the tool is really kind of outlining, the month before the month begins, and really breaking it out in those kinds of details. A lot of people will use the Every Dollar app, which I think, has been, successful, and others, prefer to use like a spreadsheet kind of an approach, but either way, it's really outlining the expenses, on paper, on purpose, and not just a lot of people will estimate and they'll say, well, it's about this and it's about that. And so we really want to know, what is the number, right? What are you actually paying, and outlining all the details. It's like, how many streaming services do you have? That kind of thing. A lot of people will say like their cell phones. Well, their cell phones not only have the service, but it's also has all the debt that's on it. So, you know, why borrow money, to buy the cell phone, right? Let's save up the money, buy the cell phone and then get a lower level of service, or, not lower level of service, but I mean a lower, plan, don't upgrade, the service contract, so that you can borrow money, on the phone, those kinds of things. So it's really kind of getting into those kind of levels of detail and kind of outlining the specifics within the plan in order to make the most headway. I'll tell you the other thing, if I had my way too, would be to I would encourage people to reach out for coaching before they buy the house, right? So let's talk about, how much house to buy, because a lot of people, what will end up happening is they'll go out and they'll buy the car or they'll buy the house. And then what ends up happening is it's like they've bought too much house, they're house poor, those kinds of things. So I think it's being able to, consider and kind of plan ahead and get some input, about, how to go about making these money management decisions, before you actually make the decision.
Yeah. Now, Joe, I know the answer to this question, but if you had your druthers, would you budget? You budget monthly, but would you think about it monthly, or is there a better way to think about cash flow on that budget?
Well, that's what Tammy and I we found, is that it's actually on a week. If you manage money on a week-to-week basis versus on a biweekly, most people manage money on a paycheck-to-paycheck basis. And it's much better to actually manage it on a week-to-week basis. 52 weeks in a year, do the same exact thing every week of the year, makes a huge difference in the way you go about managing money and the impact that you can have. So that's I think is the secret sauce, the kind of the key to the success, is to be able to manage it that way.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a great and different way to think about it, but it certainly makes a lot of sense. What, when you think about your job as on the more financial advisor side, you've got things that are constantly changing. How much can I do in a Roth? How much can I make to do a Roth? How much can I put in my 401k? What's happening with the stock market today versus a month ago are two totally different stock markets. So it can change that quick. What's your process on staying current with just, trends that happen in the financial world, different planning ideas, tax, just anything that you need to stay up to date with to be able to deliver the best advice? How do you ensure you do that?
I really like the resources we offer, in our firm. This, what's happening in the markets, kind of videos, and the articles that we provide. I think those are all really helpful. But I also happen to be kind of a student of finance. So, when I'm driving around, I'm not listening to music typically. I'm listening to, podcasts and webinars, and reading articles and books and listening to Dave Ramsey and those kinds of things. And the other thing I find is that actually listening to the FPU over and over again at different times in your life, you hear different messages. So I've been doing that 15 years now, and so I've experienced it that way. So the subscription with Ramsey Plus, I think, is a real benefit. But I think it's the webinars, the podcasts, the articles, the books, those kinds of things are what I'm really focusing on. and then talking to smart people, right? Interacting with peers and talking about what's going on in the markets and the latest what's happening with regard to different changes in strategies. Talking to our certified financial planner about planning. All of that is really helpful to stay current and ensure that we're getting the latest and the best information.
Yeah, I mean that's where like you bring up the idea of, hey, stock valuations are at all-time highs, which we've heard many different podcasts. You've definitely brought up, and that's that bleeds into our investment strategy of one of the reasons why we love our moat strategy so much, which is really paying attention to valuations when they build out their version of the S&P 500, which is done just as well as the S&P 500 with a valuation concentration. So those sort of things I think are great that you stay on top of, because it just makes sure that you're dotting your I's and crossing your T's and understanding the why behind why we recommend investment perspective, and why it's important is, well, these are things that people a lot smarter than us are worried about in the investment world, and we better be paying attention to them as well too. So yeah, that's really great, and I think that's great advice too. I often will tell people listening to the show on a daily basis is kind of like going through FPU. And regardless of where you're at in your financial journey, I think listening to the show is always helpful, because to your point, there's always something that you pick up on that you didn't, know about, or somebody's situation, changes or whatnot. And we'd be remiss if we didn't also, to your point, give a shout out to our friend Summit Puri, who does an excellent job on what we learned in the markets. If you want 10 minutes of what happened in the stock market, where the economy is at right now, and some of the highlights, Summit does it better than most, we think, does a great job, keeps it succinct, 10 minutes of your day. Everybody's got 10 minutes that you can dedicate to understanding what's happening with your investment portfolio or account or whatnot. And of course, every client in their first year with Whitaker-Myers Wealth Managers gets a free subscription to Ramsey Plus. So you want to go through FPU, like Joe said? Well, yeah, we certainly want you to go through FPU. We think that's a very valuable investment we make into you, even if you've already gone through it, because to your point, you will learn something new going through it multiple times. That's one of the reasons why I like coming to your class, Joe, is I at least got to sit through that class number 7 one more time.
Right.
Very inspiring. Joe, I noticed that you didn't say you look at CNN or Fox News or MarketWatch to gather your financial data. I think most of unfortunately, the headlines that are out there are just trying to get your click on there, trying to get you worked up about something. MarketWatch in particular, I go on there just to see what not to do, I guess, because they're usually saying time to freak out about something or another. So got to get your right source of information. And yeah, it's great being part of a team here. You can bounce things off of each other and get some good ideas. So Joe, obviously a lot of people have connected with you to engage you as a financial coach, as a financial advisor. What would you say to the person that is uneasy or hasn't gotten to that point where they're brave enough to reach out? What advice would you give someone considering working with a financial coach or an advisor for the first time?
Yeah, I think, let's just get together and talk through it. Let's, there's no fee, associated with, that introductory call. And let's talk about what the options are, kind of take a look at, where you are and what you want to accomplish, and have an opportunity to kind of help you to outline a plan. And then you can decide, whether, you want to pursue, financial coaching or, actually investing, with us to build your financial future.
Yeah, that's great. Well, Joe, this has been a incredible hour to spend with you. It's inspiring and it's been very insightful too. I think people will take a lot out of your insights as a coach and as a financial advisor there. And now that you're serving as a financial advisor with Whitaker-Myers Wealth Managers, we think you're truly in your life's position, what you were born and made to do. So thank you so much for sharing your story with us today.
Absolutely. Thank you both.
Yeah. You've given our listeners a lot to think about, especially when it comes to finding purpose in your financial life and the importance of a personalized approach. So we're lucky to have you. And of course, to our listeners, if you'd like to connect with Joe or learn more about the services offered at Whitaker-Myers Wealth Managers, be sure to visit our website, whitakerwealth.com, or you can go to the comment section of this video where we'll have a section where you can schedule a meeting with Joe or any of our financial advisors. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. So as we release these videos, you're one of the first to be able to watch them and you don't miss any future episodes we do, which are of course packed with expert advice from Summit Puri and what we learned in the markets, Tim's financial journey that he does every week, different inspiring stories like you heard from Joe or Ben Allen a few weeks ago, and of course, actionable tips for achieving financial freedom. So thanks for tuning in. And until next time, take care. And remember, we're here to have the heart of a teacher and help you live and give like no one else. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time.